Hello everyone, I'm Hugo, welcome back. It has been a while. I'm really bad at this. Today we're going to be talking about Spider-Man Far From Home, the latest Marvel Studios film, and I guess it's fair real quick to talk about what I thought about Endgame since I didn't do an official review of that, because this directly follows up with that, and the story is contiguous. So I guess Endgame thoughts in a nutshell are this. I thought it was fun. It's one of the most, how do I put this, audience-pleasing spectacle films I've seen in years. I thought what they did with the Hulk was a little weird. I don't mind Professor Hulk, but it seemed like in the first part they were setting up Endgame to be a catharsis where him and the Hulk sort of become Professor Hulk, but they kind of skipped over that, and they were just, hey, I'm Professor Hulk now, and it never really seemed like he got a satisfying way to get back at Thanos. I understand he did the initial second snap to bring people back, but I don't know. I didn't feel like Hulk's character change was super satisfying. Tony's death was great. Nat's death was surprising, but I don't know if it was really worth it. I kind of would have liked if Black Widow had stayed alive. She has a solo film coming up, so I guess we'll see what happens there, if that's in the past, or if she's not really dead, or whatever. Overall, I liked Endgame, though. Probably a little more disjointed than, what's it called? Infinity War, as far as the script goes, but I really enjoyed it as basically a conclusion to the first 10 years of the MCU. And it hit the emotional points it needed to. It packed a lot of characters in there that it needed to, and of course the end battle was a spectacle that was great to watch. So overall, Endgame, good. So now we get to Spider-Man Far From Home, which is the final film in the third phase of the Marvel films, and as I said, directly follows up on Endgame, and it of course follows Spider-Man directly after the events of what they are now calling the blip, the snap, whatever you want to call it. He and some of his classmates, including Flash Thompson and Betty and MJ, Ned, they were all snapped out of existence. 5 years have passed, as we saw in Endgame, and now they come back. And their classmates have aged out of high school for the most part, but they have to restart the school year, and they're going on some sort of science trip with their classmates to Europe. Now, the setup's fun. It thematically fits with the film because the theme of this film is essentially Spider-Man trying to come to terms with the fact that Tony Stark is dead now. And there's a void in the world for another type of Tony Stark, or there's a need for more Avengers-level heroes. But Peter is very stuck on this idea of being your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, which was basically the theme of the first film, Homecoming, was him being like, I'm gonna be a hero for the little guys. But this movie is more about him growing and saying, I can be a hero for the little guys, but when I am called upon to action for these big global threats, it is still within my purview to help people out and step up to the cause. So him leaving the neighborhood literally and going to Europe makes a lot of sense. The comedy in this film, I thought, was on point. I thought it was even funnier than the first film. I think the Spider-Man films so far, with this film especially, are the comedic highlights of the MCU, outside of maybe the Guardians of the Galaxy, which maybe have tighter scripts, but Guardians of the Galaxy does this thing that, not annoys me, but it just, like, it happens constantly, is they do, like, serious moment undercut with a joke. Like, I understand that's a thing you can do, but they do it so often it becomes predictable. Whereas the Spider-Man Far From Home and Homecoming, the jokes are more like setup payoff jokes, and I understand Guardians have those aplenty as well. But I think the relatable high school drama stuff is funnier to me. It's just a personal opinion thing. If you like the Guardians more, great. But the comedic stuff here was very funny. Like, for instance, they go on their trip, and on the plane ride, Peter wants to sit next to MJ, who he has a crush on, but things ensue and it doesn't happen, so when Ned ends up having to sit next to Betty, and they don't really get along, but by the end of the flight they start dating, and the whole trip, they're dating, and they do this thing where they call each other babe all the time in almost every sentence, and I'm sure we've all known a couple like that. It's very funny. The funniest part of the movie, maybe, though, was the one teacher. You might remember him from Homecoming. He was the one who said, like, we can't lose someone on this field trip. Not again. He had the funniest lines in the movie. His wife, during the events of the snap, faked her own death, and ran away with another guy. And he's very depressing. He's a funny character, and I hope he returns in the future. Maybe as a villain. That'd be kind of fun. I don't know. They shouldn't do that. That's a bad idea. That's overplaying their hand. This is probably the appropriate amount of depressing teacher. Anyway, it'd be funny if it turned out he was like Professor Connors, though, and he like gets his arm chopped off, and he turns into a lizard. But I think he's already named, I'm pretty sure, in the movie. Anyway, as for the main plot of the movie, Nick Fury's trying to get in contact with Spider-Man. Spider-Man kind of ghosts him. You saw this in the trailers, I'd imagine. And once he gets to Europe, he continues to ignore him until at some point Nick Fury shows up and kidnaps him, essentially, and takes him to a S.H.I.E.L.D. underground base in Venice and explains, hey, this is Quentin Beck, aka Mysterio. Mysterio being... I like how they named the character in this also, by the way. The Marvel movies have a way of, despite having the suits and stuff, suits, they don't really want to call the characters what they call them. I think in Homecoming, they never say the word vulture once. But in this, on the, I believe, Spanish-speaking, or Italian-speaking, news, they call him a man of mystery, and the word mystery is Mysterio or something like that in Italian. So that's how he ends up getting the name Mysterio. That was good. Jake Gyllenhaal does an amazing job in the dual role of Quentin Beck and Quentin Beck but evil. Because it is spoilers, by the way. Spoilers, although you probably know who Mysterio is. You understand that he's not going to be a good guy in this. So what happens is Quentin Beck, aka Mysterio, says, I'm from another dimension, as they mentioned in Endgame. There's lots of other... It's a Marvel multiverse. He even mentions that Peter's home universe is 616, which is the Marvel Comics original universe, but it turns out Quentin's lying anyway, so it's just an Easter egg. Anyway, he says these elementals are coming. You saw them in the trailer. They're based on sort of Hydro Man, Molten Man. There's probably a name for the wind guy. I'm not sure what it is. But anyway, he says they're from my home Earth, and we need to stop them or else they're going to destroy your Earth. Of course, this turns out to be a scheme by which he's trying to become the next Iron Man. He's trying to become the world's most popular hero because he used to work for Tony Stark. In fact, he developed the barf system that we saw in Civil War, the holographic system. And he and a bunch of other people, including, notably, Box of Scraps guy. Remember that clip from Iron Man where he's like, Tony Stark built this in a cave with a box of scraps. The guy who isn't the Big Lebowski in that scene, he returns as a villain, which is an excellent callback. That's super fun. So a bunch of Tony Stark's ex-disgruntled employees have teamed up to try and get a hold of Edith, which is this system that Tony Stark has bequeathed upon Peter, upon his death. Edith standing for Even Dead, I'm the Hero. It's essentially Tony Stark's... It's an AI that grants access to many of Stark Industries and Tony Stark's personal Iron Man gadgetry. For instance, he can hack phones, he can send drones to do things. He could do a lot of, like, Iron Man-y stuff with it, and Peter has been given these glasses that contain Edith. Over time, while Quentin is tricking people into believing he's a superhero, he's also tricking Peter into believing he's this great mentor figure for him. Sorry. At some point, Peter decides, I'm over this Spider-Man shit. I'm missing out on the trip. I'm missing out on spending time with MJ. So he gives the glasses to Quentin, Mysterio, under the guise of saying, like, you're the next Iron Man. You're who deserves this. Quentin takes them, and it is revealed that he is a villain. Now, Jake Gyllenhaal's performance up until the point he's revealed, I thought, like, okay, he's doing an alright job. But I don't know if this version of Mysterio is going to be very good. I knew he was going to have a heel turn, but I wasn't sure when or what form that would take. Now, when he finally reveals himself to be evil, He's a perfect Mysterio. He's so full of himself, and he snaps at people who don't respect his authority. Fantastic job. He gives off a little bit of a Nightcrawler vibe. Not Marvel Nightcrawler, but the film Nightcrawler he was in, where he played the guy who started taking pictures of accidents. Very good. It's that, but dialed down because it's a Marvel movie, you know? You can't go full Nightcrawler, I guess, in this, unless you're the blue Nightcrawler. So that's good. Spider-Man, of course. Oh, sorry, I'm still congested from being sick. Spider-Man figures this all out, and then there's, climactic battle. There's some stuff with the spider sense that gets figured out. He sort of more hones it through the course of the movie, and it's how he finally beats Beck at the end. The not fantasy sequences, the illusion sequences that Mysterio creates are fantastic. I figured they were going to be in here. He's creating illusions via these drones that have the barf hologram systems on them, which very Mysterio, that makes sense. And the visions he gives Peter are great. He's being attacked by, multiple Spider-Men, which gave me a little bit of a Clone Saga feel. He's being attacked by, like, dead Tony Stark. He's in a snow globe of Queens, or of Manhattan, but then the snow globe, it zooms out and it's Mysterio's head. It looked like it could have been a full cover spread in a comic book. It was beautiful. And all that stuff worked really great. And what's the director's name? John Watts, I think, did a really great job. The biggest films he's done are Homecoming and this. You can tell in the action scenes, he's getting more comfortable filming this action or directing this action at the very least. A lot of it's obviously going to be CG shots that he's going to explain and do like storyboards of, but the action in this was shot much better than the first movie, and I think that's partially story and partially competence. Partially story because, of course, Peter's a more experienced Spider-Man now by at least a little bit, and the director is more used to filming this sort of thing. So the swinging around, the acrobatics was much more prevalent here than it was in Homecoming, and it all works really well. The scenes are action-packed, but you can still follow them. It's not too jumpy. Some of the camera... It was a nice mix of, like, a virtual camera that couldn't exist in real life where you're sort of omniscient, but also there was sort of in certain shots, a very realistic camera that it felt like if it was on a drone or something, it could have been following Spider-Man like this. It was very neat. So, of course, Peter, by the end, beats Mysterio by using his spider sense to ignore the illusions. That was a nice character moment for him. And then, oh boy, he gets back to the States. He's swinging around with Mary Jane. The movie ends. And then, mid-credits scene, it turns out Mysterio, this whole time, had this backup plan where if he gets defeated, he blames the drones and the civilian casualties all on Spider-Man and reveals that he's Peter Parker. And who reveals that it's Peter Parker but J. Jonah Jameson himself, played by, oh god, what's his name? I'm really, really sorry. What is it? J. Jonah Jameson. He was in Justice League. And also, obviously, the Raimi Spider-Man films. Doon, 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 doon. J.K. Simmons, I apologize. J.K. Simmons comes back, and he's doing, I love this version of J. Jonah Jameson. It's sort of similar to what they did in one of the Spider-Man cartoons, and also in the Spider-Man PS4 game, where he's sort of a Glenn Beck type, or Alex Jones type crazy news person. He looks a little bit different. He's bald, but it's very cool, and I'm excited to see what they do with this. I assume it'll be retconned by what happens in the after the credits scene. After the credits, it is shown that Nick Fury and Maria Hill during the whole movie have not been Nick Fury and Maria Hill. They've been Skrulls, and not just any Skrulls, but specifically the Skrulls from Captain Marvel. Nick Fury, it looks like, has been on sort of a vacation of some sort, and it also looks like he's on a space station or spaceship with other Skrulls, perhaps starting SWORD. And I think it would make sense if in the next movie, in order to make it look like Peter isn't Spider-Man, have one of the Skrulls pretend to be Peter Parker, and then have normal Spider-Man show up to some press event and be like, I'm Spider-Man, Peter Parker isn't Spider-Man. And this would, of course, give J. Jonah Jameson a reason to hate Spider-Man or whatever, or maybe even feel bad for Peter Parker and give him a job. I don't know. So I guess we'll see what happens with that. But overall, it was a great movie. For a Marvel movie. I enjoyed it. It's perfectly entertaining. It's very funny. If you enjoyed the first one, you'll really enjoy this. If you want to follow up to Endgame that talks a little bit about what happened after the snap, this has that in it. It's got a good story for Spider-Man overall. This is my new favorite version of Spider-Man, by the way. I already liked him a lot in Homecoming, but he really nails the dorky innocence of Peter Parker in the younger days. And being quippy, but also not being very sure of himself. I think he nails it. So, yeah, I thought this was a good movie. If you like the Marvel movies, of course you're going to go see this. Why even watching this review? I'm interested to see what's going to be happening next, because we don't know any of the future films other than, like, Black Widow that we've already seen filming, and they're probably, of course, they're going to do a Black Panther 2, and Doctor Strange too, probably, but Comic-Con's coming up, and they're going to announce, I think, their next slate of films, so I'll be talking about that when that comes out. So if you want to see that, subscribe, if you aren't already. I apologize for the sparseness of the videos. I'm doing my best. I'm sorry. So, until next time, I'm Hugo. See you guys next time.